Namaste. We say namaste usually at the end of yoga, and I like every once in a while to remind us what it means. And the other day I came across an excerpt in a book that a friend sent me. It's called Friendship, the Art of Practice. It's this really cute little book. And this particular quote, I'd never heard it put quite this way, so I wanted to share it. It says, "I honor the place in you in which the entire universe dwells. I honor the place in you which is of love, of truth, of light, of peace. When you are in that place in you, and I'm in that place in me, we are one. Namaste." It says ancient salutation, so obviously not dedicated to a particular person. And like a lot of ancient sayings, it shows up in many forms, right? Over the centuries and over cultures, people kind of loosely translate and so on. So there's another translation, but I really liked its specification around, light and love and peace. And that so much of what we are trying to do when we're doing yoga is to take care of our own material, right? This own internal space. And I think sometimes people don't give their internal space as much attention as they would otherwise, because it maybe feels selfish, and that they maybe have a lot of other people and things with which they're concerned, whether it's people right in their intimate lives, or it's the world that has so many problems. And so there can be almost an addictive attention on everything outside of us and an avoidance around what's inside of us. And yet, there's those wonderful metaphors of, tend to your garden so that it will attract the butterflies, blah, blah, blah. But talking about attending to our internal space and how that really changes everything. And so if I attend to my internal space and you attend to your internal space, then our ability to be connected, like one, is significantly raised. And so, it's a great thing to strive for, or to make a point of continuing to work on. I think obviously there's just inevitable stuff that happens for us, for other people, that can make it hard sometimes for two of us to show up at the same time, where we really have cultivated that kind of cleanness, that openness, that love and peace space that we're referring to. But it was fun to have my stepdad share with me, who did a bunch of trekking in Nepal when he was in the Peace Corps, that namaste is used as just like a regular daily kind of greeting as you're passing someone on the path. Namaste, namaste, namaste. And I thought, how great to make a part of your daily culture a kind of acknowledgement that recognizes that in each human being you're passing, there is this, if you want to call it even a divinity, and that's often how we say the divine in me acknowledges the same in you, and when we're in that part of our being, but that recognizes that that other people who might be driving us crazy, or who might seem very angry or reactive, and maybe even directing that at us, that they're not in that love, peace space. And we can either go, oh, what's wrong with that person? Or we can kind of namaste. And it doesn't mean we have to say it out loud to them, but even by acknowledging it in our own mind, what I find is that I actually feel more internal peace. So when I notice myself thinking like someone else is driving me crazy, I can kind of namaste and remember that there's that part of them, that wholeness in them, that they're just not right in that moment. So that brings me to our practice. And when we are breathing, and particularly when we are moving with breath initiating motion, so really honoring the breath, which is our ultimate connection to life force, to wholeness, to peace, that we are cultivating this internal state of peace in our nervous system and our cells and so on. So regardless of which pose we're doing or what we're physically practicing, and maybe it is actually just sitting and meditating, the goal is to be in non-striving, to be really, really present with the body. And that in that way, we immediately drop into peace in that moment. even if a few minutes later our mind goes off to something unpeaceful. Right? So as we come in today's physical practice, I'm planning on just offering you something I hope just feels really juicy and really good, kind of, again, a massage you give yourself. But as we're moving through the practice, number one, please be watching for that very important piece of breath initiating motion. And then secondly, in your own body, any feedback you're getting that might say, oh, this is kind of ouchy or pinchy or uncomfortable, or I'm holding it too long and now it's making me tighten up. That's your body's clue that you're going past what we call the edge. And we always want to stay within that edge place. And of course, just noticing what you need today. Thank you so much for coming to the mat, that trusting that you can come to the mat and you don't have to accomplish anything, right? Your job, my job, is we show up at the mat, and that's that tapas or resolve. And from there, all that other good stuff we talked about is possible. So I'm going to have us begin actually in a ragdoll, kind of a forward fold with loosely bent knees. And obviously, if that just isn't working today and you just came for the Shavasana, feel free to go right into corpse pose, okay? But I'm going to place my feet in that mountain stance, so just, 6-8 inches apart, etc. I'm going to bend the knees as I then drape myself slowly over my thighs. Now, if this is painful on your back or anything, you might start with the support of elbows on the thighs instead. And this is giving a chance for this posterior chain, the back body, to let go when you're not weeding or lifting or doing anything that can kind of tighten it. This is our chance to seduce it to releasing. Some of us might enjoy wrapping the hands around kind of opposite bicep or elbows. And you can give your head a little yes shake, a little no shake, all very gently, inviting the spine to decompress. If you get stuffy here, remember you can just breathe through the nose. You can also, of course, come out and come back in. But I'm going to be staying here for a number of breath rounds, inviting breath to soften and release stored tension. Turning the gaze up and into that third eye point, lightly connecting the tip of the tongue at the roof of the mouth. Beginning to watch that slow, steady breath movement and the lovely undulation of the body as a result. I often think of a small object or a little boat or something bobbing on waves, that gentle rising and settling. Feel free to add organic movement. You might kind of rotate the hips one way and the other as if you were trying to sweep the area around the feet. And I'm going to begin adding some movement just in and out of this deeper fold and explore, again, that very end and beginning of each active breath. So when you notice your next inhale beginning, slide your hands up to your shins and please extend the spine. Is there more? Inhale. Exhale, belly to spine like you would in compression, and slowly fold again. Is there more? When the inhale calls, extending the spine halfway. And exhaling, folding. As we do a couple of more of these, practice getting your weight settled in the middle of the foot, not into the heel. Not too far forward in the toes, but feeling really rooted and neutral. Remember, you can bend the knees as deeply as you like. They don't ever have to straighten. Last time. And as we come up, we're going to first bend the knees and drop the butt so that we can come up with a nice supported spine and ease in the hamstrings. Big glute squeeze. Exhaling, prayer hands, bringing the thumbs perhaps to that third eye point and then to the heart space. Noticing breath in this shape Really tuning into your entire footbed that's making a connection with the earth, tuning into the kind of light engagement that happens in the thighs, the glutes, the belly, as you decide to root and reach. And remember, you're reaching through the kind of back of the skull, the top back. And I'm going to now take my hands down into jet airplane and add that little bit of kind of shoulder blade sandwich engagement as I rotate my palms forward, shoulder heads down the back. So you think about sending your shoulder blades into your back pockets. Rooting and reaching. And then noticing, can you liberate the neck while you're here? In other words, I'm not pushing through the neck muscles forward or anything else. The root and the reach coming from the feet through the upper back of the head, and within a sense of ease. Let's take 3 more breaths, watching it rise and fall. Can you bring breath into your upper back, into your chest, into your ribs? On your last inhale here, invitation to engage the glutes. Forward, sweep up through the arms. Remember, you don't have to bring them together, so don't stress your shoulders or neck. Exhaling, swan dive into your ragdoll once more. Inhaling, extend halfway, hands on the shins perhaps. Exhaling, step back, right leg only, and then drop that right knee. Coming on up into your knee down lunge and asking you to just pulse here. So ideally the hip bones are straight forward and we can feel a nice stretch kind of happening, a little massage in the front of that right hip. If it feels good, hold in that forwardmost position and add arms to accentuate the stretch. If it's bothering your knee, then you're going to want to come onto your foot instead. Breath, initiating the stretch, expanding the massage. One more. Exhaling, plant the hands and come on back to your ragdoll. Inhaling, root and rise, sweep up, big glute squeeze. Exhaling, prayer hands. Inhaling, root and rise. Exhaling, swan dive and fold. Nice belly to spine compression, so you're doing it in a standing position. Good. Inhaling, extend halfway. And exhaling, step back, left foot only. Drop that left knee, again, unless it bothers you to be on your knee. I begin with my hands on that right thigh so that I just feel really stable and supported and present, my attention being present with that stretch in that left hip. Soft tongue, soft gaze. And then holding in your forward position, if you'd like, adding arms. And again, you're cultivating a deep breath, like pushing breath into that low belly. This gets a nice stretch potentially into the psoas. One more deep inhale. As we release, this time we're going to step back to downward facing dog. If downward dog just isn't in your wheelhouse today, you might settle right into puppy stretch instead on your knees. Here it's a more active stretch, of course, for the shoulders than puppy is. And we also have the opportunity of doing some nice hamstring stretching. So you can see I'm pedaling my heels, it's getting into my calf muscles. And remember that when you decide now to hold downward dog, those heels might never come to the floor. And the knees might never straighten. What we do want is a powerful line from the roots of the hands all the way through the tailbone up and back. See if you can find a nice lengthening. Good, I'm going to pulse forward a little out of that, and again, deepen. Good. And coming into seated to roll back into our bridge. So when you're ready, come on down. I like bridge with the upper arms on the floor, hands splayed. That's kind of
My favorite for really keeping tension out of my neck. You can see what works for you. You can always add Yoga Mudra. Otherwise, as you come to your bridge, you can use this as kind of a massage. So there's no goal to like get into the highest bridge and hold for a million years. It's more like, ooh, what can I find here? What's needed? What can I give it? Remember to imagine like a block or something between the thighs so that you're creating an internal engagement there. Good. Find your edge and hold. Witness breath in this shape. And when you're ready, come down as slowly as you can. Really tonifying that posterior chain, the hamstrings and the butt. Ah, lovely. Bring the feet together and just let the knees come out into a relaxed butterfly. If you'd like instead an active one, please bring those feet towards you and let those knees be apart there. We can also add a nice little windshield wiper, as I often call it, and even a little sit-up motion. Ooh, I actually got my toe to touch my nose. Yep, got the other one. That's amazing and rare. You just never know what's going to happen when you come to the mat, so be curious, be amused. All right, we're going to come into bridge one more time to add our leg extensions. This to me is one of the most important postures for massaging and kind of giving our body therapy that really supports it in everything we do. Make sure the feet are no more than 4 or 5 inches apart, and then begin to extend one leg and then the other, and notice if one hip is dropping. I also like observing in my body that often if there was an imbalance, after I go back and forth a few times, things improve. It's like the right muscles wake up, the right nerves fire. And come on down. Good. Happy baby. So we haven't done this one in a while together because I assume a lot of people are doing it on their own. But we can grab between the big and second toe with the middle and index finger. We can grab at the blade of the feet, the ankles, or use a strap. So again, it's just what's comfortable for you, but we'd love our shoulder heads anchored and then the tailbone tilting down towards the floor. And then one of my favorite add-ons here is kind of this half straddle. So I'm going to bring one heel in towards the butt, and again, you might be holding at the ankle or somewhere else, and extending the other leg. And switching. There's just, again, just a great opportunity for some of the same stretches we get like in a standing straddle, but this is nice because we aren't, the legs aren't weight bearing. So there's a little bit of, I think, a freedom here, an ability to massage the tension while relaxing into it. Deep, steady breath. Be present with your massage. Lovely. And lastly, we're going to press I'm going to press briefly into bridge again, just to kind of get those glutes oriented. I'm going to come into reclined pigeon. Now, if you're like, oh, I really want an active pigeon today, then go for it, right? You can come into traditional. Otherwise, right ankle on the left thigh. I'm going to hug the right knee to my chest and then rotate just a little left. And please notice what the breath brings you. And you can even emphasize it by kind of pushing a little as if you were trying to send breath down into the hips. Again, the more you can make it organic, maybe a little side to side. And when you feel ready for the other side, come back to center. Replace that floor foot is the safest. If you're pretty loose and happy, you could, of course, do it midway, but the safest is always returning that foot. So cross left ankle to right thigh, hug that left knee, and take it a little to the right. And again, this is such a great chance to notice, is this side different? Is it a different location of stretch, a different intensity? During these held stretches, it's marvelous, again, to see the breath traveling to the places of intensity, right? We've got the time to really do that work. Don't let the mind wander off on something unrelated. because there's so much good stuff happening in your body right now. You might add your ujjayi throat contraction if you haven't yet. And again, when you come on back, replace that floor foot and release. Good. I'm going to release my legs flat, so I'm coming into a corpse pose, although I'm not really going to go into corpse. Don't get excited. It's not Shavasana. We're going to do a brief rock pose with or without sit-up, and I'm going to add a little bellows breath, which we're going to do in standing in a moment too. So it's an optional add-on. Take a big inhale. Exhale, belly to spine compression. Rock pose, squeeze. Come into your sit-up or leave that part out if your neck hurts. And then bring the hands in and out from the hips like you're kind of like little wings. And then a big inhale. Exhale. Release. I love bellows breath for its ability to, in fact, kind of clean up, clear out our space energetically. All right, bringing knees to belly if you can. Spinal rock up to seated. Plant the hands. I'm going to scooch back. And I'm going to take it cow-cat to downward facing dog. Big inhale. Shoulder heads anchoring down the back. Exhale, belly to spine. Is there more? Is there more? When you're ready, take it to downward facing dog using that core strength. So it's not so much about your shoulders working hard. Please settle your gaze between your feet. And if you feel okay here, join me in a few sighing breaths. If you need to come out before that, do. Inhaling slow, deep, and wide. Noticing how breath operates when you're upside down. Inhaling, notice the breath takes up room. Exhaling, it gives space. Good, one more. I'm going to take it straight into a little dog series. If you'd like to skip that, just walk your hands slowly back to your feet. Otherwise, right here, inhaling plank. Reminder to always do knees down your first round. Exhaling, chaturanga, elbows in by the ribs. Inhaling, either cobra with the pelvis anchored or upward dog with it suspended, and downward facing dog. And then we're going to push one hand at a time, walking the hands back to the feet into that rag doll that we began with. Inhaling, root rise, big glute squeeze, and prayer hands. Go ahead and step sideways on your mat into straddle. And it doesn't have to be, super wide. We want it to feel powerful, rooted. And so we're going to do that more of that bellows breath that I just mentioned. Again, it's just a really great space cleanser. So I'm going to make my hands into fists with my thumbs straight up and then kind of clamp the thumb knuckle down like I'm pinching something against my other fingers. Shoulder heads rotate down. And when you're ready, please join me in bellows breath. If you don't need the eyes open for your balance, go ahead and close them. Again, be aware of this amazing terrain that is you when you're ready. Continuing, please, obviously, if you feel lightheaded or if you've got blood pressure stuff going on, then I would just do some slower, deeper, wider breaths. Just a few more if you can, just a few more. And then a long inhale, sweeping the hands up, glutes pressing forward. If you can, touch the palms. Exhaling, prayer hands, pause, notice. So it's interesting for me to notice that when I do bellows breath like that, often there's an inclination
for me to kind of contract the mouth and kind of, press down. And so I always try to notice that and soften. But the after bellows breath, I almost always feel like smiling. Like there's just something about it that shifts for me. So notice that. And bellows breath is wonderful because you could use it in a moment, right? Any day. You notice yourself feeling kind of, you can just pump that stuff through. All right, let's go into our warrior flow. Option to either go downward facing dog, right leg flying if you're looking for more hand and shoulder work. Otherwise, joining me coming from the front of the mat in our mountain stance, either hands in prayer or that jet airplane. Good. Taking a long breath in. Standing, folks, we're going to come into standing crane. Lift that left knee. Add yoga toes, so peeling those toes open and back. And exhaling, slowly step back to your crescent lunge, or if you prefer warrior one with the foot flat. Either way, we want those hip bones shining forward. Where would your arms like to be today? I often really benefit from reaching one up and one down. And then I also like in this position how I can let that one down arm reach down a little bit, like I'm kind of trying to let a heavy bucket towards the ground. And so this is a challenge to our balance and stability, but it's a great side body stretch. Love that massage by bringing breath into it. Good. And when you're ready, opening up to your warrior two. Back foot comes flat. Remember, thighs are externally rotating. This is important. Pulse it. Remember, like we did with that knee down lunge at the beginning, that pulsing gives the body an opportunity to release the first layer of tension and resistance, and for us to find out that there might be space there we didn't even know about. Perhaps adding platter hands. You can also keep rotating them if you enjoy that massage. Watching breath rising and settling, and again, we'd love to let the breath initiate our movement. So only when your next inhale is coming, let it reach that front arm up. Couple of breaths here, counter reaching through the other arm. You can always take the neck where it's peaceful. Remember, you can straighten the front leg or keep it bent. And only on your next exhale, let breath slowly bring you forward, lateral stretch. Elbow to thigh, shoulder head anchors, rib cage rises up into the heavens, and we hopefully feel easy in the neck. I'm going to reach my left arm forward for that deep side body stretch. But again, any little organic movements can be kind of wonderful. If I'm moving that top arm a little forward and back. And as I move towards downward facing dog, I'm going to spiral that a little bit. And plant and step back. Inhale, exhale, sigh. Good, and you might walk the hands back to the feet again, or you could also step forward to the front of the mat. And we'll create our standing crane on the other side. Lifting the right knee, yoga toes, and a nice athletic stance in that front leg, pushing, so that as you reach back through that right foot, it's like you can kind of see where you're headed. Again, adding arms. And I'm really enjoying that side body stretch that I mentioned. So after a few reaches, I'm going to start letting that lower bucket down. Watching what breath does in this shape. What amazes me is when I become this aware of how breath is moving in my body, it makes me realize how little time I spend in my daily life being aware of that, right? I'm paying attention to doing the dishes or having conversations or whatever I'm doing. Not my breath, not my body. On an exhale, when it comes, rotate open, Virabhadrasana 2. Again, it might be in platter hands, but take a moment to pulse. And I often do that pulsing with my hands on the hips. It just helps me feel, I think, safe and steady and a little more aware. Breath playing upon us again, so we're like a small boat bobbing on the waves. Sometimes on the exhale, finding that we can go a little deeper than we thought. On that next inhale, reaching up through that front arm. Again, maybe straightening the front leg or keeping it bent. Counter reaching through that other arm. And being kind to your amazing neck. And on an exhale, breath initiating motion slowly forward to your lateral stretch. And the more we can draw our sternum or rib cage in, shoulder heads anchoring down the back versus shrugging, the more we're going to find this strong, stable structure that also can be more relaxed, more breath filled. And as you're ready, another opportunity to sweep that top arm and plant the hands for downward dog. If you're skipping any dog or dog series stuff today and just want to go into ragdoll or child's, feel free. When you're ready, step back. One more opportunity for dog series here. If you would like, join me in coming forward to your plank. Always check that your hands are far enough back under the shoulders. Exhaling, you might raise the hips a little bit so that the chest precedes the hips. Inhaling, upward facing dog or cobra on the floor. Exhaling, belly and breath take you back. Inhale, exhale, sigh. Marvelous. Let's drop the knees for child's pose and settle in. If your wrists need some love, please roll them. If your hands are kind of just settled on the mat above the head, consider bringing the index fingers together and then the thumbs so you've got a nice connection there. Where does breath travel in this shape? And an invitation to extend the hands as far forward as you can, with the butt also reaching as far back towards the heels as you can. And then coming onto tented fingertips, so that ideally my entire length of my arm is off of the floor. Obviously, if this hurts your shoulder, do not do it. You could also move your hands wider, but you just have to honor what those joints have to say. But as I'm in this active pose, I'm going to kind of spider walk my fingers some more and just see if I can get a little more length and to breathe into that now. I find that the breath in this shape travels in some really interesting and nuanced ways. On an exhale, relax. Another long inhale. Big belly, expanding into the back. Exhale, belly to spine, tuck the tailbone. And that's what should bring us up ideally. Go ahead and bring your knees under your shoulders. We're going to come into gate pose. And as you probably know, I love gate pose because it's such a challenging balance posture, being all on one side of our body. But it also uses all this integrity that we work on in yoga of, intelligent hands, shoulder heads down the back, and all that. So first, find your stable core, and that means I'm not hanging on my joints. I'm belly to spine. I've got a nice kind of tuck, little bit of a tuck in the tailbone, and I'm so stable and strong here right now that, I should be able to kind of not rely on my hands so much. Again, shoulder heads anchored. Take the left foot back and place it 90 degrees to the other one. So when I look under me, my right hand, right knee, and right toes should all be pointing at my left heel. And when I squeeze my right butt cheek towards the left edge of the mat, it starts to pick that left hand off the floor because it's rotating my body open. And so it just naturally proceeds. You could also bring that left hand initially to the hip instead of going right to the sky. Again, notice if you shrugged with your right shoulder or the floor one and anchor it. Again, ideally we shouldn't even need that hand. So go ahead and check it out. Breathing. And see what it would like to be raising that back leg. Good. And when you are ready, come on back. We'll do the other side. So planting the right foot 90, checking underneath, squeezing the left glute towards that right edge of the mat. That peels my right hand off the floor. And so you're coming into a shape that's like
you're between two panes of glass. And one of the things that is necessary for that is that the head actually come back into alignment. And most of us will have it kind of forward of the spine unless we investigate that. Again, see if you can kind of come away from the floor with that floor hand or that back leg. You can take the head or the vision wherever it's easeful. Good. One more long breath, one long inhale. Exhaling slowly. Come on down. Marvelous. Inhaling cow, exhaling cat. Taking it to downward facing dog. A downward facing dog is a pose that I hated the most when I started yoga, but that is one of the most important. It's one of the only things that we get to do that really allows us to push through the shoulders, right? We don't do much of that in daily life. And of course you can do it in a handstand too, but downward dog is like the most accessible way, short of going to a gym, of really creating that push. It's pretty awesome. As you come hands back to feet, take time to push through each hand. So you're not trying to get back fast. You're taking time to really lengthen. And fold. Good. Bend your knees more deeply, and if you can, intertwine your fingers behind the back for Yoga Mudra. If you can't, remember just grabbing a sock or a strap between your feet, between your hands, can give you enough distance, hopefully, to rotate those shoulder heads down the back. Because that's what we're looking for, actually, is what I call kind of the shoulder blade sandwich. So instead of being here, that everything finally rotates and allows this amazing massage movement. You always want to take it nice and slow, no flinging. And applying deep breath to that shape, and then as you're ready, inhaling, root and rise, come on up. Exhaling, prayer hands. So after gate pose, tree pose should be pretty easy, I would think, although I know that's not true. But it is easier in the sense that we're, we aren't kind of sideways, right? But I want to make it hard enough that we have to contend with losing our balance. And how do we react to that? Do we, again, kind of crunch our mouth and squish our tongue up against the roof of the mouth? Do we hold our breath? That's one of the most common. So we're going to find tree pose and then challenge it however much you need to in order to really observe yourself and ultimately get deep breath. So I'm bringing my toes, big toes together, other toes lifted, spreading out. Nice glute and thigh squeeze. And again, find that root and reach right through the upper back of the head there. I'm going to bring my right foot into kickstand, so the ball is on the floor, my heel's kind of at the ankle. If I bring my foot up to the calf, I want to keep those toes flared in yoga toes. You can see I don't have them just flat and floppy against the leg, and I'm not gripping them, right? I've got them flared out. So I know exactly where my foot is. And I'm going to continue to press the foot and the leg back towards each other. And you can see how that brings me out of kind of a hip cock into being once again stable, almost as if I had that foot still on the ground versus collapsing. So when you feel like you've got your version, begin to explore arms. Shoulder heads stay rooted. So even if you're reaching up, 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 you're not doing it through the shoulder joints, right? We want to stay nice and strong and in our core. And one of my favorite ways to challenge my balance is to either just close the eyes or to take the vision down and up and down and up. And so I'm moving one arm up, one arm down, kind of like I was in my crescent lunge, and I'm playing with my vision. Ujjayi, soft, steady breath in and out. Find the gap. Resolve in prayer hands and slowly release to both feet. Feel really good to roll out the ankles. We can also do a nice foot stretch of kind of curling the foot the other way. A lot of us, when we're trying to balance, will kind of try to grip with the feet. And what I want you to notice is that we do want to root, but that means spreading, not
curling and gripping. So if you notice, if you look down and you see your toes are kind of curled under, you're getting that kind of knuckle coming up, that actually means you're losing some of your stability and your ability to balance. So when you're ready, creating the other side, big toes touching, engaging those thighs together like you're making a tree trunk. And slowly coming into your version of tree. Either the left foot into kickstand or sliding it up to the calf with those yoga toes. And again, what it means is that if I have to catch myself or fall, I don't have an unaware flat foot. It's really prepared to connect with the earth as I touch down. Again, staying engaged through that right thigh against the left foot, almost like there's a ball or something there that you're squeezing. Good, nice soft tongue, maybe even a soft smile. Nice ujjayi, and when you're ready, add your arms, either still position or in movement, and maybe you close your eyes. And you are currently cultivating steady breath to the best of your ability, even if you're quivering a little. So if you're making a kind of a balance challenge, you might find that your core is kind of tight, and that's what's helping you regain balance. It's these center muscles. So it can make the breath a little kind of choppy, but that's all right. We just don't want to hold it or make it super shallow. So choppy it may be, but keep it steady, keep it deep. And when you feel complete, return to prayer hands and come on out. Beautiful. Give those legs a shake and ankles. Again, maybe you want to curl that foot under, give it that nice stretch. Yeah. So we're going to come into another posture today that I'm kind of just including a bunch of things that I think are just good for our body, but also kind of referencing that, like steadying our material, clearing our material. And we've done this one in recent weeks, but I want to bring it in again, which is goddess pose. And part of what I like about it is it does create some intensity muscularly, particularly in our thighs, but also for many of us in our arms, if we're actually holding them up at that position and not kind of dropping them. And it gives us a very powerful chance to notice our tendency, again, towards holding breath or becoming shallow in the presence of intensity. And instead, what we get to notice here, if we do it, is that when we intentionally, willfully bring breath to intensity, that it actually shifts our ability. We become powerful, we can sustain intensity, we can find peace inside of it. So that's the game that we're playing with ourselves here. And it's really important that in playing that experiment that we're not obviously hurting anything. So if something kind of tightens and it's doing like a clench up or something, just come out and come back in, right? And nobody can see you, but even when we're in class together, I love it when we can all see each other coming in and out of the pose. It's like, oh, I'm with a community of other people who are honoring that edge and finding it. So you want your feet turned out a little bit, not like in a plie. We don't want them straight forward. We want just kind of, if you were to jump and then kind of land, what would be a natural angle. And then with hands on thighs for a moment, like we did in Warrior, kind of pulse and just explore. You know, what's a good place to hang? Again, you don't have to maintain it. You can come out whenever you want. And then notice if you're hinged way forward, try to come again into a wonderful neutral, as if I'm a puppet kind of just hanging by a string. And then the arms are 90 degrees if you can. If that bothers your shoulder, then bring them down, but intentionally. Don't let them sort of slide down unconsciously. Powerful hands, shoulder heads down. Light connection, tip of the tongue. Soft internal gaze if you can, otherwise open and steady. Observing breath rising and settling in this shape. Keep checking with your tongue, with your neck, with your eyebrows. to invite soft witnessing and no struggle. And you can even notice your words to yourself too. If some part of your thinking is like, oh my God, this is hard, okay, know that you can come out. But what happens if you go, man, this is intense. I am strong. Yeah, I'm going to breathe into this. Maybe you find all of a sudden you go deeper. It gets easier in a way. We're going to be here for about a half a dozen more breaths. Here being wherever you go. Couple more. Good. One more. I'm going to invite you to Om on the exhale. Big inhale. Bring those arms up. Exhaling. Stay in the squat if you can initially. Om. And come on up. So if that felt fun, if it held your notice, if it was a great place to challenge your edge, your thinking, your breathing, again, just this pose alone could be a thing that you go to tomorrow or the next day, etc. If you're not getting on your mat for an hour a day. I don't think anyone would expect that. If anyone's doing that, by the way, I hope you'll tell me, because like you're my hero. But that isn't, of course, necessarily what we need, but it's amazing. All right, so standing quad stretch, or if you'd like, go onto your belly for your pre-bow bow. Otherwise, just really using some of that same balance ability that we developed in tree, the spreading of the toes, that uprightness, the softness in the neck. And if you're wanting a little more intensity, remember that first you're squeezing your glutes, but that the more the standing knee comes back and in towards the standing leg, the more you'll get. And again, you can let that shoulder head rotate back. And let's go to the other side. I usually only hold this stretch for 3, 4, 5 breaths, something like that. You could also use your free hand, by the way, as a nice stabilizer. So again, I like remembering this stretch as an option that I can do during the day. I'm not going to get out my yoga mat maybe right after I've done some gardening or something like that, but I could certainly do this stretch to help these muscles kind of unwind. So I'm going to return us for one last hold in our ragdoll where we started. And I'm going to ask you to bring deeper breath to it, that nice compression and expansion, a real evolution of breath, not just a shallow kind of subsistence, okay? So in your own time, bending the knees, the head is the last thing to drape down. Inhale, give it room, even if you don't move to that actual extension like we've done, but you can just kind of lift a little. Exhaling, belly to spine to fold. As we spend just a few more breaths here, and just notice breath in the body. Make sure to place your weight centered in the feet, and try to let the neck go with gravity. You might feel your cheeks get really heavy and kind of sinking up towards your eyes with gravity. That's a good sign that you're really letting go. And when you're complete, you can either root and rise and sweep up, big glute squeeze, or you could simply then come on down to seated like so. I often recommend a big glute squeeze after that kind of a fold. So whether it's like we just did standing or coming to your back body for a bridge, I think is really effective. And then I'm going to invite us to close in a either a recline over the block or over a rolled up blanket or towel. And this is for that under the bra strap area. And so just depending on how tight you are, how intense things have been, make sure that you're choosing the right object. We don't want to take on any neck tension. This is meant to be purely therapeutic. And if this doesn't appeal to you today, maybe do the block under the sacral triangle instead. If you're using the block under the bra strap, this is how I get there. I kind of come onto my elbows and I get the block so that the upper edge of it is just down below my wingtips and my shoulder blades. Clunk. And then ideally, again, the head should be able to rest without a feeling of compression in the neck or like a lot of pressure at the base of the skull. And whatever position you found, when you're ready, begin to breathe and notice, where are the stretches happening? Where is breath naturally traveling because of this shape? It might feel good to very gently roll the head side to side, or if you like the shoulder stretch that we can get here, it's reaching one arm up towards the sky and then behind you. Remember, the goal is not to reach the floor, the goal is to reach the wall behind you, and so we actually keep the arms straight, and whether it ever gets close to the floor, we do not care. But we can pulse that arm a little towards the ear and away, and release out to explore the other side. Again, this is a position that we can do every day. So again, even if we're not going to get out our yoga mat, but we're like, oh man, my neck's kind of bugging me, or we just had a long drive and I'm really feeling it, or I've been at my computer a lot. Just taking the time to do this it's revolutionary. It can really unwind the stuff that plagues us and creates really awful pain patterns. When you come off, please roll a little to one side with the head. We never want to lift directly up. And then you might come into your classic corpse pose. You might be in child's pose. You might choose to use the bolster to recline over. We did a bunch of that recently where we did either resting deer or just that simple recline. So I'm going to ask you to take a few moments to really find comfort. You could also lay on the floor with the legs up the wall. As we get into some of the hotter days of summer, I know some people will also experience a certain amount of like swelling and just having their feet and legs feel kind of puffy, or if you're doing a lot of sitting especially, and that legs up the wall position can be marvelous for helping shift some of the fluid and so on back down into the body. And the body's so brilliant, it knows how to circulate, right? If we just give it the right support with breath, with gravity, whatever, that all the stretches that we just did and that we do in yoga, then the body can circulate life force in a way that really does create peace and love and light in our own systems. When you are ready to sink down and in, whatever that position is, close your eyes and again look behind the third eye point. And as you begin to look inward again, please do so with a sense of appreciation, reverence, gratitude, whatever bubbles up, but a recognition that the body is truly miraculous and that it is constantly healing, renovating on your behalf in ways that we can't even know or see or understand. But we know that we feel better, we feel different when we have practiced yoga, when we've deepened to breath. We can do it even in a walk down the street. 3 sighing breaths changes things. So that is the magic of the breath and of the body. So a moment of appreciation. And then when you're complete there, just settle into a soft, still point, a yogic sleep. Letting the breath quiet like a baby sleeping, just slow and soft, in and out. And letting gravity get heavier with each exhale. You might even scan the body and notice if there are any muscles that are holding on in your thighs, your neck, your jaw, and let everything soften, melt, spread. Becoming lightly aware of my voice, inviting you to notice that how even a few minutes of truly softening can be super powerful. I think we often wait to relax, or we wait to be happy, or we put conditions on these things, and when I have time. So I hope these few minutes have resonated with you. And if you feel deep enough to just stay settled, I encourage you to do so. Again, it's hard for us to understand consciously what the body is doing with it. But what we know is that it will take that healing life force and shift all kinds of things that are needed. So just abiding in softness and faith with that. I'll be closing our practice with ohms and the bowl, and you're welcome to just let it wash over you, a healing vibration, or if you'd care to join me, please do. If you're seated, please find a long spine. If you're on your back, please enjoy noticing how the floor creates a sounding board. It'll allow you to feel the vibration in your back body. Let's gather that first long inhale. Om Shanti Shanti. Om Peace Peace. Namaste.